What happens when a self-made hotel CEO puts on a bellhop uniform and watches his staff treat a guest like an inconvenience? Xander Knox stood at the back entrance of one of the hotels he'd built from nothing, pulling a name tag onto his navy vest. It read Ray. He looked nothing like the man in his Forbes interview last month. The thick beard, glasses, and buzz cut helped. But it was the uniform and posture that sold it. No one would expect the CEO to carry luggage. This was hotel number 12 out of 20. A mid-size 4-star property near the coast, known for its elegant lobby and fast service. But lately Xander had been hearing whispers. A couple of odd online reviews. A complaint about staff attitude. Nothing major, but enough to bother him. He'd gotten used to trusting his managers, but something about the tone of those reviews made him uneasy. He hadn't met the workers here before. He rarely visited this one. That helped with the disguise. The whole chain had grown fast in the last 2 years. Too fast, maybe. That's why he was here? It was a Monday morning. The lobby buzzed with checkouts. Xander stood by the bell desk, waiting for someone to acknowledge him. No one did. A tall man in a gray suit walked past him, barking orders into a headset. "Where the hell is the new bellhop?" the man muttered. "I don't have time to babysit today." Xander stepped forward. "I'm Ray. I started today." The man glanced at him, irritated. "Right, fine. Follow me." His name tag read, Bryce Hotel Manager. Bryce walked fast, barely looking back. "Stick to bags and doors. No chatting with guests. If someone asks you something, point them to reception." "Got it. Got it," Xander said calmly. Bryce didn't wait for a reply. He veered off to the front desk, where a guest was waving her hands in frustration. The first hour passed slow. Xander helped with luggage, opened doors, ran up and down elevators. He kept his ears open. Most of the staff were polite, working hard, but they looked tense, rushed. One housekeeper in her 40s dropped her cleaning cart by mistake and no one helped her. The front desk agents looked like they were walking on eggshells. Every time Bryce walked by, people stiffened. At 10:30, an older woman entered the lobby. She wore a soft blue coat and leaned on a cane. Her silver hair was tied neatly behind her head. She looked around, unsure. Xander stepped toward her. "Good morning, ma'am. Can I help you with anything?" She smiled. "I'm here to check in. I was told there'd be assistance with my bags." "I'll take care of you," Xander said, gently taking her suitcase handle. "Let's get you checked in first. Then I'll walk you to your room." They walked to the front desk. Bryce appeared again, standing behind the counter. "Excuse me," the woman said softly. "I believe I have a reservation. Under Gloria Monroe." Bryce glanced at the computer, then gave a tight smile. "Check-in isn't until 3. You're early." Gloria blinked. "I know, but the confirmation said if the room was ready, I could check in early. I called ahead." Bryce didn't look away from the screen. "Well, I'm saying the room's not ready. You'll have to wait." She shifted on her feet. "I'm sorry, it's just hard for me to stand this long." Xander stepped forward. "Is there a place she can sit?" Bryce shot him a look. "Ray, go back to the bell desk. She's a guest. And I'm the manager," Bryce snapped. "Room's not ready. Not my problem." Gloria's face fell. Xander's jaw tightened. "Come with me," Xander said quietly to her. "I'll find you a place to sit." They moved to the lounge. Xander helped her get settled. She thanked him, her hands trembling slightly. "He didn't need to speak to me like that." "No," Xander said. "He didn't." He returned to the bell desk. Bryce stood there, arms crossed. "Let me explain something to you, Ray," he said. "You're here to move bags, not play hero. You don't correct me in front of guests. One more time and you're out." Xander stared at him. Understood. The next few hours, Xander kept a low profile, but his eyes were sharp. He saw Bryce ignore another guest's question. He saw him snap at the concierge for not upselling a suite. He even watched Bryce blame a front desk agent for a computer glitch that was clearly the system's fault. But it wasn't all bad. He noticed a young bellhop, maybe 21, short with curly hair, run out into the rain to help a guest with a stroller. He didn't complain, didn't ask for help. Just did the right thing. Later, Xander saw a housekeeper, Tamira, bring extra towels to an older couple on her own break because the front desk missed their call. She didn't even mention it to anyone. These people were trying. But they were working under someone who clearly didn't respect them or the guests. At 4, Gloria's room was finally ready. Xander offered to carry her bag up. As they rode the elevator, she said, "That young man at the desk, he treated me like an inconvenience." Xander nodded. "I'm sorry about that. It's not how things are supposed to be." She smiled faintly. "You're the only one who made me feel welcome today." That stuck with him. Back downstairs, Bryce was laughing with another manager, clearly relaxed now that the lobby had cleared. Xander stood a few feet away watching, his hands curled into fists, then relaxed. He needed to think. This wasn't just one bad moment. It was a pattern. He didn't know what bothered him more, how Bryce treated the guests, or how the staff seemed scared to speak. He slipped into the break room, pulled out his phone, and dialed a private number. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It's me. I need the district manager here tomorrow morning, and clear my schedule for the week. I'm staying." Xander stepped off the elevator the next morning wearing the same uniform, same name tag. But something had shifted. He wasn't just observing anymore. He'd seen enough to know the culture here had drifted far from what he'd built. The question now was how deep that drift ran. By 7:30, guests were already filing out for breakfast. Xander made his way through the back corridors, careful to blend in. He passed a storage room with the door cracked open. Inside, the young bellhop from the day before Nico was shifting luggage carts into place. His hoodie was damp around the collar, probably from the morning rain. "You always in before your shift?" Xander asked, stepping in. Nico looked up, surprised but not defensive. "Yeah, usually. Helps to get ahead. If I don't prep carts early, I spend half the day chasing them down." Xander nodded. "Management ask you to do that?" "Nah. They don't care long as no one complains. Just makes the day smoother." Xander glanced around. The storage shelves were disorganized, carts stacked haphazardly, some with broken wheels. "You ever asked for replacements?" Nico gave a short laugh. "Asked last month. Bryce said we're not a 5-star. Make it work," his words. Xander crouched to inspect a cart with a loose handle. "And what happens when one of these breaks in front of a guest?" "Then it's our fault," Nico said, shrugging. "Same story every time." Xander stood. "You ever consider working somewhere else? I like it here." "Just not him." There it was, simple, honest. Not bitterness, just quiet disappointment. Xander left Nico to his prep and made his way to the staff kitchen, where the housekeeping crew was grabbing coffee before the day began. Tamira stood near the coffee machine, pouring sugar into a paper cup. She looked worn but alert. Xander approached her carefully. "I saw you help that couple yesterday," he said. "Nice of you to go out of your way." She turned, surprised. "Didn't realize anyone noticed." "You always that thoughtful?" She sipped her coffee. "I try. I've been here 5 years. You get to know the regulars. Some of them come back just because someone remembered their name or how they like their pillows." Xander leaned against the counter. "Do you feel like the company sees that kind of effort?" Tamira gave a faint smile. "The company? Maybe. But the people running this building?" She shook her head. "Bryce doesn't care what we do, only what we don't." "Meaning?" "Meaning if a guest complains, he's in your face before you can explain. But if you go the extra mile, it's invisible. Unless someone messes up, we're just background." Xander studied her. "That ever get to you?" "Only when I think about quitting. Then I remember there's nowhere else nearby that pays even this much." That quiet resignation stung more than anger would have. He thanked her and left the kitchen. Upstairs, the district manager had arrived. They met in a small office normally reserved for HR interviews. No cameras. No interruptions. The man's name was Derek, a 30-year veteran of the hospitality industry with a sharp eye and a low tolerance for nonsense. Xander closed the door behind them. "You know Bryce." Derek sat down. "I know of him. Took over last year. Performance metrics looked fine on paper." Xander sat across from him. "I want every complaint filed by staff or guests from the past 6 months. No summaries. Full reports. I also want the turnover numbers." Derek raised an eyebrow. "You expecting something ugly?" "I'm not expecting anything. I'm confirming a pattern." Derek nodded slowly. "You want me to confront him?" "Not yet. One more day. I want to see how he handles pressure firsthand." Xander returned to the lobby around 9:30. A line of guests had formed at the front desk. One agent was clearly overwhelmed while the other tapped on her keyboard with a frozen expression, likely dealing with a stuck reservation. Bryce stood off to the side, arms crossed, not intervening. Xander approached the concierge desk where a middle-aged man in a navy blazer was trying to keep a couple from storming out. "I'm sorry, sir," the concierge said. "The suite upgrade wasn't processed. I can try to." The guest cut him off. "We paid for that view. If you can't deliver, we'll leave today." Xander stepped in before it escalated. "I can escort you to the available suite we do have. It's not the ocean view, but it's larger and has a private balcony." The concierge looked at him, surprised but relieved. The couple hesitated. Xander continued, "We'll comp your parking and breakfast for the duration. And I'll make sure you get the view suite tomorrow once it clears. You have my word." The husband looked at his wife, then nodded. "Fine. But this better not be a pattern." After they walked away, the concierge turned to Xander. "That could have blown up." Xander kept his tone even. "Why didn't Bryce step in? He said it wasn't his job to babysit reservations." "Is that something he says often?" The concierge hesitated. "He says a lot when no one's recording." Xander tapped the desk lightly. "Thanks for holding the line." The rest of the afternoon, Xander kept his distance from Bryce, choosing instead to shadow the front desk agents. He watched them handle misbookings with quiet efficiency, improvise when supplies ran out, and to escalate frustrated guests without any backup. At one point, a family arrived whose room wasn't ready. The father leaned on the counter, clearly exhausted. His daughter sat on the floor, playing with a plush toy. The mother asked if they could at least store their bags. "That's fine," the agent said, glancing at Xander. "Ray, could you—" "I got it," Xander said, already reaching for the luggage cart. As he wheeled the bags to storage, he heard Bryce's voice behind him. "You know, Ray, if you spent less time trying to impress guests, you might actually finish your rounds on time." Xander didn't turn. "Just doing what's needed." Bryce snorted. "What's needed is following the chain of command. You want to run things? Go get a clipboard." He walked off laughing with someone from sales. Xander didn't respond. He didn't need to. The people who mattered had already seen the difference. Not because he was trying to be a hero, but because he actually showed up when others didn't. By the end of the day, he had everything he needed. The reports Derek brought him confirmed what he'd suspected. Turnover was up 30% in the past quarter. Exit interviews cited hostile leadership and lack of support. Guest complaints had doubled compared to the previous year, most involving staff attitude or slow service. But when read closely, it was clear staff were overwhelmed, not lazy. The problem wasn't effort. It was leadership. The final straw came during the evening shift change. Bryce pulled a new hire aside, a young woman barely out of training, and berated her for forgetting a room number on a luggage tag. Not corrected, berated. In front of a guest. Xander overheard every word, standing just out of sight. The girl looked like she was trying not to cry. Bryce walked away without a second glance. Xander stepped forward, looked her in the eye, and said, "You did fine. Don't let that stick." She nodded, not trusting her voice to speak. The rest would happen tomorrow. But tonight, Xander sat in the staff break room long after the others had left, staring at the wall clock, thinking about how far this place had strayed. He had built this company on the belief that if you took care of your people, they'd take care of your guests. Somewhere in the middle of growth and expansion, he'd stopped checking if that was still true. Now he knew, and he was going to fix it, starting with the man who thought no one was watching. By sunrise, the hotel lobby was still, the only sound coming from the automatic espresso machine hissing behind the front desk. Xander stood inside the manager's office, not as Ray anymore, but as himself, clean-shaven, dark blazer, watch back on his wrist. He reviewed the security footage Derek had pulled up on a monitor. No sound, just a silent loop of Bryce pacing, pointing, dismissing, walking away. The timestamps matched guest complaint logs to the minute. Derek entered, holding a single page. "This came in from HR. That bellhop you asked about, Nico. He's never been late once in 14 months. No write-ups. Doesn't even use his sick days. I checked his pay history. He's still making entry-level wage." Xander scanned the numbers. He handles half the carts on his own. No overtime. None requested, none approved. Xander set the paper down, jaw tightening. "What about the new hire Bryce yelled at last night? Name's Camila. She's on her second week." Requested reassignment to another property this morning. Xander didn't respond right away. He adjusted the cuff of his blazer, then walked out of the office. By 8 o'clock, the lobby was busier. A line had formed for checkouts and the bell desk was already 2 calls behind. Bryce stood near the elevators, arms folded, giving clipped instructions to an intern wearing an oversized suit jacket. Xander waited until Bryce turned toward him. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't need to. Manager's office. Now. Bryce blinked, confused, then started to speak. Xander didn't give him the chance. Not a word out here. Walk. They entered the office. Xander closed the door behind them. Bryce's posture shifted. Okay. Is this about yesterday? Because if someone's been exaggerating, I can explain. Xander didn't sit. You don't know who I am, do you? Bryce squinted, trying to place him. We met during your onboarding, didn't we? Right. Bellhop. Xander stepped closer. I'm Xander Knox. I own this company. Bryce's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Xander held up a hand. Don't try to recover. Just listen. Bryce's eyes darted to the door, then back. He stayed silent. You've been managing this property for 14 months, Xander said. In that time, guest retention dropped, staff turnover spiked, and complaint volume doubled. But that's just numbers. What matters more is how you treat people. I didn't. You did. Xander cut in. You treated a woman with mobility issues like she was a problem. You berated a young staff member in front of a guest until she nearly cried. You ignored 2 service failures because they didn't fall under your job description. You've created an environment where employees are afraid to speak, where initiative gets punished and disrespect goes unchecked. Bryce's voice cracked slightly. I didn't know who she was. If I'd known. Xander stepped forward. That's the problem. You think respect is conditional. It isn't. Bryce shifted, defensive now. Look, I've kept the place profitable. Isn't that what matters? You didn't keep it profitable, Xander said. Your staff did, despite you. They've covered for you, picked up slack, fixed your mistakes, and held the line while you stood back and criticized. That ends now. Bryce swallowed hard. Are you firing me? You're relieved of your position, effective immediately. HR will walk you through the exit protocol. You'll be escorted off the premises in 15 minutes. Bryce reached for his phone. I need to call legal. Xander didn't move. Your contract includes a conduct clause. I've seen enough to invoke it. You'll get your severance. But you won't work under this brand again. Bryce stayed still for a moment, then slowly walked out of the office. Xander didn't watch him go. A few minutes later, Derek entered. He's gone. Xander nodded. Bring the staff to the lounge. Everyone. 15 minutes later, nearly 20 employees stood scattered in the lounge: housekeepers, bellhops, front desk agents, kitchen runners. Some leaned against the wall, others sat on armrests or folding chairs. No one spoke loudly. A few looked nervous. Xander stood at the front, blazer unbuttoned, sleeves rolled up. I'm the reason you've all been short-staffed for months, he said. I didn't see it soon enough. I trusted the wrong person to lead this property, and I didn't check in until it was already costing you. No one interrupted. I came here pretending to be a new bellhop. Not to test you, but to understand what this job feels like when no one's watching. What I saw was a team doing the best they could under pressure with no support. You've been taking care of our guests while your manager took care of himself. He turned slightly, looking toward the back of the room. I saw Nico run into the rain without hesitation for a guest he didn't know. I saw Tamira bring towels on her own break because she knew someone needed them. I saw desk agents fix errors that weren't theirs and still keep their tone polite. That's the kind of service people remember. That's the kind of team I'm proud to have. Tamira looked down at her shoes. Nico blinked and looked away. Xander continued. Effective immediately, I'm authorizing overtime approval for all departments until staffing levels stabilize. All team leads will be reviewed for promotion consideration. And I'm installing a new interim general manager, someone who's worked both the front lines and the back office. He gestured to Derek, who stepped forward. Derek's run properties twice this size. He's here to listen, not dictate. If you've got concerns, bring them. No retaliation. A murmur moved through the room, cautious but hopeful. One more thing, Xander added. We're launching an internal audit of pay rates. Anyone who's taken on additional duties without compensation will be adjusted retroactively. That includes bellhops who've been doing double shifts without acknowledgement. He looked directly at Nico. I know what effort looks like, and I won't overlook it again. There was a long pause. Then a young woman near the window raised her hand slightly. What happens if we see someone acting like Bryce again? Xander didn't hesitate. You report it, and I'll deal with it. Personally. Another voice from the back. Are you staying? Xander gave a small nod. For the next week, I'll be working from the ground floor. Not as your boss. Just as someone who needs to relearn what this place is really about. He stepped back. That's all. Get back to your day when you're ready. As people filtered out, there was no cheering. No applause. Just a quiet shift in posture. Shoulders straightening. Conversation starting. A different kind of energy settling into the room. One rooted not in fear, but in recognition. Xander remained standing for a moment, watching them go. Then Tamira approached, holding her cleaning schedule. You weren't kidding, she said. No. She glanced at the lounge doorway. You think it'll stick this time? Xander met her eyes. That depends on me. She nodded once, then walked out. It wasn't finished. Rebuilding trust never was. But it had started. And this time, he wouldn't be waiting for the next complaint to remind him where leadership really lives. Xander stepped off the elevator. Tie loosened, clipboard in hand. The sun was barely up, but the lobby lights were already on, casting a soft glow over the polished floors. He paused briefly near the bell desk, watching Camila check tags on the luggage cart. She didn't notice him at first. Her eyes were focused, her movements methodical. When she finally looked up, there was no hesitation in her voice. I've got the early checkouts covered. Nico's on his way down. Xander nodded. Good. If anything's off, say something early. Don't push through it. She gave a small, firm nod and turned back to her checklist. That was new. The quiet hesitation from before had been replaced by something steadier. Down in the service corridor, Derek was already reviewing inventory logs with the night auditor. Xander walked past them and into the back office where a row of folding chairs had been set up for the morning briefing. Housekeeping leads, 2 kitchen runners, the maintenance supervisor, and a few front desk agents filtered in. They sat not in silence, but in low conversation, exchanging notes, comparing schedules. Xander stood at the front, flipping open a binder. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. We've got a vendor arriving at 10. Kitchen priority shipment. Make sure the loading dock's clear. Maintenance 2 elevators flagged for inspection. I want those logged before noon. Front desk, you'll have 2 group arrivals mid-afternoon. 32 guests combined. They're expecting a welcome setup. He paused, then looked around the room. Before we wrap, I want to try something. Each of you, what's one thing we can fix this week that doesn't require budget approval? The first to speak was the maintenance supervisor, a broad-shouldered man with a shaved head. The staff lockers, half of them don't close right. Been like that for months. Xander nodded. Noted. Who's next? A kitchen runner raised her hand. The breakroom coffee machine stops working after 10 minutes. Been patched 3 times. We get more use out of a kettle. Done. Tamira leaned forward slightly. Guest laundry instructions are printed in a font so small, half the guests call to ask how it works. We've got a bigger font version saved in the system. No one's printed it. Xander looked at Derek. Make the switch. By tonight. One by one, they spoke. Not complaints, solutions. Things they'd been carrying alone that someone was finally willing to lift with them. After the meeting, Xander walked the perimeter. The landscaping team was trimming hedges near the parking structure. A delivery van idled by the side entrance. Everything was in motion, but this time it moved with intention instead of pressure. At mid-morning, he met with Gloria Monroe in the lounge. She sat by the window, sipping tea, a thin paperback open on the table. He approached with a quiet greeting. She closed the book gently. I heard the man who dismissed me is no longer here. That's true. I'm sorry it came to that, but I'm not surprised. Xander sat across from her. You deserved to be treated with care. Not tolerance. She looked out the window for a moment. I've stayed in many places over the years. You get used to being overlooked. But what made the difference wasn't just that someone helped me, it was that someone noticed. He didn't respond right away. The pause was intentional. We're updating our guest protocol for early arrivals. That change starts today. She smiled faintly. Then I suppose I was useful after all. Xander chuckled. You were more than that. Later that afternoon, he entered the HR office and sat down with the regional recruitment lead. The door closed behind them with a soft click. We're reopening internal applications for department leads, he said. I want anonymous peer reviews to factor into promotions. We've been relying too much on manager endorsements. The recruiter adjusted her glasses. You want reviews from the staff under them? Yes. If someone's leading from fear, I want to know. If they're carrying more than their job title says, I want to know that too. What about performance metrics? Still matters. But it won't be the only thing that does. She nodded. It'll take time to build that system. Start today. By early evening, the lobby had taken on that familiar hush, guests checking in quietly, soft jazz playing overhead, the occasional shuffle of luggage wheels against tile. Xander stood near the concierge desk as a young couple stepped up asking about bike rentals in the area. Tamira, passing by with a fresh stack of towels, paused and added a recommendation about the waterfront trail. The couple thanked her, surprised by how specific her information was. As she walked past Xander, he called her name softly. You ever consider cross-training into guest services? She frowned slightly, caught off guard. I've always been in housekeeping. Doesn't mean you have to stay there? She tilted her head. What would that look like? You'd shadow concierge 2 days a week. Learn the systems. Talk to guests. If it fits, we make it permanent. She hesitated, then slowly nodded. I'd like that. Before she could walk away, Nico approached from the opposite side of the lobby, holding a clipboard. We're short one cart. Wheels gave out on the freight unit. Xander glanced at the back hallway. You have a backup? Not unless we borrow from banquets. Borrow one. And log it. We're replacing the broken one by tomorrow. Nico raised an eyebrow. That fast? Delays already cost you effort. You're not eating another shift for it. For a split second, Nico looked like he wanted to say something else, but he didn't. He just gave a small nod and jogged off. Xander watched him go, then turned to the front desk. Camila was checking in a family of 4, managing the room keys, breakfast vouchers, and parking validation all in one go. Her tone was even, her timing precise. He walked over as she handed the final keycard to the father. Nice work, he said once the family had moved on. She looked up. I didn't freeze this time. You didn't flinch either. She smiled, just a little. I guess you were right about not pushing through. No, Xander said. You were. I just listened. As the evening deepened, guests filtered in and out, the staff moved smoothly through their shifts, and the building felt perhaps for the first time in months fully intact. There was no ceremony, no speech, no celebration. Just a quiet, unmistakable shift in atmosphere. Xander returned to the manager's office one last time that night. The desk was cleared. The walls were bare. The nameplate had been removed. He sat down, not to stay but to finish. He opened his laptop and sent a final memo to the executive board. 1 page. No attachments. It outlined the new peer review system, the reinstatement of internal advancement tracks, the audit results. It included 3 names of employees being fast-tracked for leadership development. It closed with a sentence he hadn't written in years. Leadership isn't measured by how much control you have, it's measured by how much trust you earn. He closed the laptop. Then he stood up, walked out, and left the office door wide open.